All right, welcome to this new mini-cast format. My name is Vince Jeffs, and I'm coming to you from Atlanta, my home office. And what I would like to do in these brief segments, keep them to about 10 minutes, is give you some of my views on marketing technology and specifically artificial intelligence and machine learning in this area. There's a lot of hype about these technologies and their ability to affect the kinds of marketing that's going on. And so I'm excited about it. I mean, I've been in this space for about 25 years, and I've certainly been very interested in how data and technology, as it's evolved, can improve our marketing efforts. And as a consumer, I also enjoy it because when I put that other hat on, I very often, as a marketer, say to myself, boy, our marketing is really still pretty bad. It's often irrelevant. There often seems to be poor targeting and not offers that aren't all that compelling, really, and don't necessarily resonate with me as a consumer. So I think we're starting to see that change a little, but I'm not buying into the total hype. I think, as often happens with new technology, it reaches a crescendo in terms of the kinds of expectations, and then kind of like the hype cycle, it falls off into a bit of a trough or a winter. But nonetheless, I'm positive about machine learning and artificial intelligence and its impact on marketing and CRM and customer experience in general, because I also follow these areas of sales automation and customer service in the company I currently work for. So I'm not just following it as it's impacting our marketing efforts. So let me start with just some of the classes of technology that I see and how it's beginning to impact marketing. What I really notice is that we've got some technologies that honestly have been around for quite some time and are just, for all intents and purposes, renamed, given a new fancy label, and as marketers, that's what we do. So it's not too unusual. But many of these are just statistical techniques that have been used for years for predicting behavior in marketing. And they come from statistics. They're great techniques. They're tried and true. So I don't want to downplay them at all, but I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that these things often are, and my screen went blank there, so you have something to look for. I'm going to reactivate it. These techniques are very, very good, but again, not very new. So logistic regression, decision trees, clustering, various forms of our ability to take data and to build a prediction based on that and figure out which variables are important in that equation is something that we've been doing for years. Excuse me. So again, not something terribly new, but often given a bright new shiny wrapper, if you will. The other thing to note in that area, and this is not to downplay it at all either, is that it is becoming a little bit more easy for people to execute and implement these techniques as the ability to get a tool to do it has been reduced in cost and made free in many cases with open source tools like R. And also become a little bit easier to use. So many of the vendors, I used to work for SAS back in the early 2000s, and even then they were already bringing more 1, 2, 3 step type modeling wizards and interfaces to make the process of data preparation, actual model generation, champion challenger, and then output of those scores easier. And we've seen continued improvement in that area. So that definitely is bringing these technologies more to the masses. The other real advancement we've seen lately is in what we call machine learning of a automated fashion. So this is when you don't have to have somebody that's a model builder retrain the model, by feeding it more data and then rescoring. This happens now through these techniques that are adaptive in nature or automatic without the human intervening. And the process that's going on is actually not all that complicated. The techniques, again, are often ones that have been in the statistical community for years, such as Bayesian. But the convenience of having a machine recalibrate a model on the fly as it's fed data. So an example would be as you give responses to whether you're interested in an ad or interested in a product or service or not, or a promotion, you're giving feedback to those models in some cases, and they're learning your preferences and they're adjusting the rankings next time that you'll get or other people like you will get. And that happens again in a more real-time fashion than a statistician or a data scientist having to do that. The other obviously huge hyped area right now that we've probably all heard about is deep learning. And deep learning comes out of, again, a technique that has been around for years and years. In fact, was created as a technique back in even the 50s, I think, neural networks, which use a technique that models the way that our neurons are fed information and output information. And by putting these together in what's called layers, these neural networks, and that's where the term deep comes from, is there are many layers and they form these multitudes of neurons. They can do some pretty interesting stuff, specifically around some unstructured data and new data forms like video and pictures. So there are some interesting potential use cases here for CRM and marketing that I'll explore in maybe my next podcast or mini cast, as I'm calling it. And again, in this area of what I call machine marketing. Way back in the day, we were called database marketers, but now I think with machine learning and big data, I'm kind of trying to test a new term called machine marketers. But that really, again, will focus on the applications, the smart applications of some of this new technology to affect better marketing outcomes for our consumers and for us as marketers. And that's ultimately what we're looking for. So the other thing that I want to do is, again, just touch on a couple of other techniques that I think are coming to the surface or becoming more effective. And another area is what I would call complex event processing. CEP is the acronym that's used. And this, again, is something that's been around for years and years, but what we see is that as technology gets better in its ability to scale and for us to do it at reasonable costs using garden variety hardware and cloud computing, also as we see data, the availability of data has always been a struggle for data scientists. And now with data sources being so much easier to get and to train these systems on, we're now seeing this kind of thing take off. So complex event processing is all about streaming data. And of course, we know the IoT and its ability to get data from devices, not just from computers that are getting human input. This is taking off. And then the ability for our algorithms, again, to recognize patterns and put together multiple data sources to, again, sense a pattern and then trigger another system to be aware of this pattern has been satisfied. That's becoming very interesting in this technique of complex event processing, as it's combined with these other techniques, is helping, I think, again, CRM use cases and marketers. So the other thing, a couple of other areas I'll touch on, and then in my next minicast I'll go into some of the applications of this. Things like robotic process automation, we've seen this come into play now where we can do things automatically because what we can do is we can sense what humans are doing. Also a big area is chatbots and messengers and intelligent assistants. So that comes into play more in customer service, but certainly has implications to marketers, and we'll explore that a little bit. We also have deterministic rules that still are very important, eligibility rules, compliance rules. So rules engines are still important, and we cannot downplay at all how we use these. Sorry, the sun has come in and changed my optics here a little bit, but that's one of the advantages I have of the home office. So we're going to explore these areas, and I'll give you again some further thoughts of mine on how these are being applied today, and then maybe in a mini cast we'll get into some future ideas and how that might impact it. Thanks.